Namaskar, Amrinder ji. I welcome you on this small little podcast of ours for Global Menopause Collective. For the good of the audience, I've got somebody very special joining me from Chandigarh, Amrinder Chhabra ji. She has worked in many high demanding roles in her career. She's been with she's been working with Consulate General of Canada. She has worked with the University of Fraser Valley. She's worked with Hutchison Max Telecom. Before that, she's been in many high demanding corporate roles. Someone who has seen burnout up and close as a lived experience. And she's a keen social worker who has held roles that require a separate episode to cover. So, thank you so much for agreeing to join us on this podcast of ours, Amrinder ji.
Thank you, Harmanjeet Rekhi. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for inviting me for this podcast session. I'm really glad to be here today. And
Perfect.
finally, we're going to talk about things women usually whisper about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what I wish to kind of discuss with you today is something that not many people recognize, not many people acknowledge, and
Mhm.
there's no talk about it still. Burnout. Why is it so difficult for women to ask for help when they need it? Now, let me give you a few observations here. Many women grow up being praised for being strong, dependable, and selfless. Asking for help often feels like failing at these roles. Society quietly teaches women to manage everything from work, home, emotions, relationships without a complaint. Over time, silence becomes a habit. There is also fear of being judged, seen as weak, or labeled as incapable, especially in professional spaces. Many women have learned to put others first for so long that they struggle to even recognize their own need for support. So, in simple terms, they are conditioned to cope, not to ask. What's your opinion about this, Amrinder ji?
In all honesty, actually, women are taught to manage things on their own right
Hmm,
from a very, very young age.
hmm,
They are expected, as you rightly said, to be very strong, caring, responsible, and resilient.
hmm,
So, if a woman is actually strong, she's praised by everyone. But
hmm,
if you see that she herself feels that if she's going to ask for some sort of help, that she feels she takes it as a failure.
hmm.
So, our social conditioning is such that women are self sacrificing. We
Yeah.
don't want to trouble, others. We have that fear of being a burden, so that we feel if we keep quiet even when we are struggling, that's absolutely okay.
Hmm,
We
hmm.
worry that, see, in case we are asking for some sort of help, that will inconvenience the others,
Right.
or it may create some sort of conflict, maybe at home or even at the workplace, and people would start judging them. So that's also another factor. So,
So,
and mostly I feel, you know,
hmm,
the efforts of women usually go unnoticed.
absolutely, absolutely,
We
absolutely.
do a lot of emotional and invisible work.
Hmm, hmm.
And I'm not saying it at home. Women who stay at
Everywhere,
home,
everywhere,
everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah. The women who are homemakers, they would also, I'll tell you simple things like remembering birthdays, anniversaries of your family,
Yes, of
extended
course,
family,
of course.
planning the get togethers at home, or in case you're planning some kind of an extracurricular activity for your child, right?
Hmm,
You're managing things, you're prioritizing all the things as per your family needs. So these things, they don't only
Hmm.
happen at home, but even in the organizations. At
So
home we
basically,
usually.
you are weaving the social fabric of the house and the workplace,
Absolutely.
essentially, and that somehow has just been put on your shoulders without any permission, without any asking from you.
See, the way we say that women is actually the backbone or the spine of the family.
Right,
So,
right,
but
right.
even in the corporate world, I would like to say that here, that caregiving actually shows up in very quieter ways,
Hmm.
where women are considered to be the emotional glue, even in when you're working with teams.
Hmm. Right.
How I'll
Hmm.
explain it to you.
Hmm.
They are the good listeners right from the start.
Right.
So whenever a colleague or your peer or somebody senior to you has a conflict at their workplace with the
Hmm.
manager or the supervisor, they will always turn around to a woman to listen to their
Yeah,
grievance.
absolutely, absolutely.
Or in case they're facing any kind of personal difficulty at home,
Hmm.
it would always be a woman who lend an ear to the other person.
Hmm.
So the way I
Yeah.
said that at home, they remember everything. Even in workplaces, women remember colleagues' birthdays. They'll always check in on others. We are the first ones to notice, if somebody is struggling at work, and we will step in to ask, "Are you okay?"
And to probably
Mm,
cover up, to shower him with some affection, or him or her, and then eventually to kind of make things okay for that person. Correct? That's
Not
exactly what
only
you're trying to say.
Absolutely, not only okay for that person, but to even have the smooth functioning in your team. Because
Hmm.
you work as a team, so it's
Hmm.
your prerogative that you need to ask about the welfare of the other person in case the person is not doing well.
Hmm.
You always have that thing at the back of your mind, the productivity could go down, or how I can actually step
Right.
in to
Right.
help
Right.
this person.
Right.
So
Right.
this kind of emotional work is not part of any job descriptions.
Absolutely. You said it
And
right, and
it
you
is not
nailed it right
visible.
there. And moreover, see, with all this responsibility and this shouldering of such a big non-descriptive sort of a responsibility, somewhere, if a woman has to ask for help, that starts to feel illegal to her. She says, well,
Absolutely.
this is not supposed to be. Why?
Right.
Because she has, right from the beginning of her let's say womanhood, when she was a young girl, she has started to adopt roles automatically by nature. She has started to adopt those roles in the house, then eventually in the school, the college, university, and then also in the workplace. But what happens when her faculties start to be challenged? What happens when nature, her body, her age, her hormones,
Starts showing up.
they start to kind of
Hmm.
challenge her, put her
Hmm.
in a tight spot? She still continues to harbor that responsibility, that weight on her shoulders. And somewhere down the line, when she's not able to ask for help, when that help which was seeming to be illegal, it does not come, she starts to suffer. The silent creeping in feeling is burnout.
Correct.
I hope I make sense in this.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
See,
Another,
that. Mhm.
sorry, please go ahead.
No, no, please go ahead. Mhm.
Another thing I was wanting to, you know, comment on when you were speaking, women have a flowy energy. They automatically flow. They create that sympathy. They create that empathy. The culture of the office, the workspace, is basically held together by all the women colleagues. I wouldn't say it's not done by men, but better by women. Am I right in this observation, Amrinderji?
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, that's what we were talking about. So I was telling you that it's not that, in workplaces, all these things men don't do. But
Hmm.
if a man does that, to be very honest,
Hmm.
it's always taken as good leadership.
Hmm.
But in case of a woman, since she is expected to do all this, it's not visible anywhere.
Absolutely. It was supposed to be. Yeah, it was supposed to
And
be.
women have never been ever heard, properly. Women have been always told that you are overreacting,
Hmm.
or they've felt ignored in the past. So they will
Hmm.
end up hesitating and not come up and ask for any
Hmm.
favors or
Yes.
to ask for anything, be it at home or be it in their workplace.
And
They
this is not only
actually,
the case in India, this is everywhere. This is all around the world.
right? They actually feel guilty, putting themselves first,
Right. Right.
because they're
Right.
being taught that caring for themselves will be something that they're selfish. So they'll always push their needs aside
Hmm.
and put their family first at home. And in workplaces, they'll put the work or their colleagues or the organization before they'll put themselves.
This is the sole reason why we are building this collective, because not only for women, but we want to kind of put the message out into the families, to the male members of the families, to the male colleagues, to the workplace managers, to these corporates,
Correct.
to the workspace environments, that a woman would go through a challenging phase starting from, let's say, 35ish. So be acceptive of these changes. Be appreciative that she is still putting in a lot of effort despite going through such and such challenges herself. Another point, Amrinderji, I would wish to kind
Mhm.
of talk about today is, now we've seen that women lack support, women lack the energy to ask for help,
Mhm.
that sense to ask for help. But how does the lack of support lead to women silently suffering from burnout at work? Have you, in your experience, have you come close to this observation ever in your career?
Yes, definitely. Number of times. I'll explain this to you. Since women carry extra responsibility, they take on more work at
Hmm.
home and even in their workplace.
Hmm.
So, when support is missing,
Hmm.
they push themselves harder to prove their worth
Yes.
and to feel valued, often at the cost of their own health.
Right, right, right.
We sometimes, at it used to be so interesting. Now we hear the world talking about perimenopause, menopause. We've started acknowledging all these symptoms.
Hmm.
But earlier, we would feel emotionally exhausted at
Hmm.
work,
Hmm.
which was never felt to be normal. Why? Because if we were feeling fatigued, there was
Hmm.
anxiety. At times in our workplaces, while working, suddenly you'll feel there is brain fog. Why?
Right,
Why
right.
why are there mood swings? You know,
Hmm.
what's gone wrong with me? Why am I
Hmm.
irritable? I know I
Hmm.
have a deadline to meet. I have some
Hmm.
report to submit, but why this irritability?
Hmm.
And suddenly you'll feel there's a colleague who's saying, "Oh, why the AC is at such a high
Right,
temperature?"
right,
Because she's
right,
getting those hot flashes.
right,
She's
right.
feeling dizzy, you know?
Hmm.
And we would just all dismiss that as stress. Oh, she's stressed out because she's got to submit a report. There are
Hmm.
deadlines to meet. It's not that. Now, when we acknowledge all this, when I look that in the retrospective, I feel yes, probably if somebody was feeling those hot flashes, maybe she was going through that menopause stage. But we were
That's a
never,
very important observation you're making here. Very, very important. So basically, what you're trying to say is that this knowledge has to be imparted to everybody, including the workspace environments, including the workspace managers. Then only
Absolutely.
there will be sensitivity towards these topics, right?
Absolutely.
That's something very, very important, Amrinderji. I would want you to explain further on this, please.
You know, since I was talking about brain fog, I would give you a very typical example. I would be sitting at work and I know you've got some report that you've made and you've done the entire work with your own hands.
Hmm.
The numbers, everything. Suddenly, while you are explaining, I was into contract management at the consulate. I was
Right.
doing a high end contract, which was a security contract for the consulate. And we'd
Hmm.
invited bids for that, which we would open, and we would go through the technical bid and the
Hmm.
pricing bid separately, and then make a report on that. There were certain parameters given. While I
Right.
was explaining that to the panelists, that which security team we are going to pick up, suddenly I go blank for a few seconds and I didn't know what to do. I pick up a glass of water and then I said, okay, how to cover up with all these things.
But
And
then you are
I,
perplexed that what has happened to me? What's gone wrong?
yes, I said, I've done this math myself and I knew the numbers. Why suddenly a black, why am I going blank? Why suddenly a blackout? And then, okay, you suddenly remember, oh, okay, then you correct yourself and you go ahead with it. But then at that point of time, I never understood that why this brain fog was happening. It would even happen at home.
So
Very typical.
let's say, Amrinderji, at that moment when you the year or the era that you're talking about,
Mhm.
in that workspace, people were aware of perimenopause and menopause. In your home, your family was aware of this. How do you think they would have supported you in this? This is exactly the change we want to see in the coming few years. So let's say the same situation, you're explaining the numbers, but your boss, the manager, whosoever was sitting in that hall with you, or the conference room with you, they knew exactly that, this is supposed to happen. This may happen. How do you think that would have changed this experience of yours?
See, had my colleague or the boss who was sitting, the manager, would have been aware of these perimenopause symptoms,
Hmm.
yeah, by just looking at me, the person could have said, you seem to be really stretched out. Do
Hmm.
you want to talk? Or you need some assistance? That small pause, I would say, would have made me feel listen, like seen, listened to, instead of being judged.
Amazing. Amazing.
Had I paused there, they would have acknowledged it, that, oh, there could be a problem. That's fine. Okay, let's
That's
go. Let's
okay.
move it.
Okay.
That's
Let her
okay.
relax. Give her
Yes,
some time. She'll come back to it. Nobody was judging you. And that trauma of you feeling judged at that point of time, that would have been bypassed. Because you
absolutely.
yourself would have known that, okay, fine, this is a natural phase. This happens. There's nothing wrong with me. So what happened after that when you started to kind of relive that moment? Were you imagining things? Were you kind of making up, or what was coming to your mind? How were you analyzing that?
See, analyzing, I would feel that now I am much more aware about these
Hmm.
symptoms. So it is basically that you need to educate people around so
Hmm.
that you don't suffer with all this all by yourself. By educating, I mean to say that you need to educate not only your people at home, you need to educate families, you need to educate communities, you need to educate schools, so that people are able to
Yes,
recognize these symptoms and normalize these kind of conversations.
normalize. Normalize
Yes.
is the word I was looking for. Sensitize is the word I wish to give out.
Absolutely.
And this is one of the most candid conversations on podcast, this particular podcast of ours. Why? Because this is what lived experience is. You are able to draw out a line on a page and say, okay, this was before and this is how it should be after. One of the most honest conversations I've ever done on my show. Most honest. I clap for you. I salute you for this. Thank you so much for bringing out this point, Amrinder ji. And we started by talking about burnout. Did this particular episode, the one that you just spoke about, did this convert into burnout somehow or the other?
Definitely it did.
It
I
did.
can even, give you a very hilarious example that happened with me during a brain fog. It's not that it only would happen at the workplace.
Hmm.
I was driving back home from work and had like definitely a little late. There was too much of work pressure those days. So when I
Hmm.
get back, I know I have to kind of prepare dinner for the family, and I'm like helping out my who's at home, the housekeeper, and I say, okay, I'll probably prepare this dish because it was time for dinner. And
Right.
I get to the refrigerator, literally, I
Hmm.
open it, and I'm just looking through the different containers that what was I here for? Cooking has been a part of my life for last what 30, 40 years. I
Hmm.
simply forget that what did I come close to the refrigerator for? Was I here to pick up some vegetable, or what did I mean, it took me a few seconds, and since I was holding my phone in my hand, I just put that on the shelf. Whatever I had to pick up, I was looking for some tomatoes and ginger. So I picked that up,
Hmm.
went back, started cooking. The phone is left inside the refrigerator only.
What? What?
After that, after a few minutes, I start searching for the phone. And, like, as usual, my daughter says, Mom's forgetful. Mom can never remember where she puts her things. Okay,
Hmm.
let's dial out her number. And when they dial out, suddenly you can hear a very slow beep coming from the refrigerator, and you realize you put your phone in. There is such a joke in the
Yeah.
family. But
But then
that was
again,
actually
you see,
some kind of
when you
brain fog.
when you when you when you don't when you don't realize that this is supposed to happen, you
Correct.
know, then of course you get fidgety about it. You get perturbed about it. What's going on? Probably is it dementia? Am I progressing towards that? You start to imagine quite a lot of things. But the moment you start to put all this in the basket that it is supposed to be,
Mhm,
perimenopause, this is a
mhm,
stage, this is a phase, you
mhm.
are going through that. You start to be more acceptive of all these things. You start to acknowledge them with a lot of holding a lot of space for them, you know, for these
Mhm.
kind of episodes. And it should not turn into worry, eventually turning into burnout. Just imagine you are slogging in the workspace, you have issues in your relationships, you have problems creeping up because of all these symptoms in your family. At the same time, a self doubt starts to creep in. What's happening? Why am I getting forgetful?
Correct.
Because menopause is construed as something which is going to happen at 50, 55. So you're waiting for that phase.
Mhm.
It is not supposed to be happening right now. That's what the general perception is. It is not supposed to be happening somewhere close to 35, 40. And this is the time when people are at the peak of their careers, they are at the peak of their productivity. And a lot of times I've seen it is construed wrongly. it is taken as something, oh God, I've started having dementia. And then you start going on the Google for that. You start looking at ChatGPT for all these symptoms. And none of them, because the database does not exist, none of them are ever going to tell you that this could be perimenopause.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. At um in the office also, sometimes we women would say, which we would actually connect that to, somebody would have some kind of a muscle pain,
Hmm.
and we would
Hmm.
say, oh, probably osteoporosis has started.
Bas, yes. True. Very true.
That would
Very
be
true.
the straight
The
off. Oh,
straight on. You don't, you don't
you
start from the
you
beginning,
got your
you reach the
calcium.
end point.
Yeah. Have you got the calcium levels checked?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
probably it's the beginning of that.
Right.
Whereas we could never connect that this kind of a muscle pain could correlate with, perimenopause or early menopause symptom.
Another thing that I want to bring out is in workspaces where the demand is high, the pressure is high, the stress levels are high, stress levels, I would say. There's a constant release of cortisol through the day, through the week, through the months, through
Mhm.
your time period at work. You come back home only to sleep, not to rest.
Correct.
And mental rest is important. You need to disconnect, and you're not allowed to disconnect. And somewhere down the line, that emotional exhaustion starts to get normalized. It's okay to have this much stress. It's okay to be working more than what is required. It's okay to be working on emails till 11:30 at night. It's okay to not prioritize your family but work. It's just a couple of
Mhm.
more years. I'll get it through.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere fatigue, anxiety, brain fog, mood swings,
All
they
this.
are all dismissed as okay, this is just stress. Just
Uh-huh.
stress. And that
Mhm.
just stress is actually causing a steady stream of cortisol, which is really, really harming you. So, one of the
Correct.
things that we have been seeing is workplaces often reward output, not well being. So, women keep delivering even when they are running on empty jars. And over a
Correct.
period of time, this silent over functioning leads to burnout. But
Uh-huh.
there is no visible breakdown, it all gets unnoticed.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever been in this zone yourself, Amrinderji?
Number of times,
Yeah.
because in the corporate world, your targets are so high, and with those deliverables right in front of you day in, day out, you forget to, take care of your own self, take care of your body, or even prioritize your own needs. You're only running after, those numbers. The way you've exactly said that, even in the middle of the night, you'll wake up, you'll only remember, oh, I got to finish that. I have those deadlines to meet. That's my report submission tomorrow. So you sleep with that, you wake up with that. You're not actually resting even while you're
Absolutely,
supposed to be
absolutely.
rest.
Yeah. You are sleeping with responsibilities, unfinished business, you
Waking up with
waking
that.
up with unfinished business and those responsibilities. And every time, everything is on the back of your head. Those reports,
Right.
those, I would say, still lingering on targets,
Right.
unfinished, unworked business, and
Mhm.
that never ends. You don't have that capacity to just disconnect and say, okay, fine, I'm done for the day. Families, they keep waiting for your presence. Your children have learned how to stay and exist without you. And I'm not talking about a place like Chandigarh. I'm talking about places like
Yes.
Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, where the stress levels are so high. I see my children every day. There are people in corporate jobs who would see their children on weekdays, weekends, sorry. Because the weekdays, by the time they get up, the children have gone to office. By the time they come back from office, the children have already gone off to sleep.
Sleep.
And what a pitiful life, I would say. I should not, maybe I won't include this in the video, but what a pitiful life it is it not?
It is.
What a way to live. Yeah. So, one more cue about this. What do you think would create an inclusive workplace where women feel safe about perimenopause, menopause, and burnout, especially, according to you?
See, an inclusive workplace where women would actually feel safe
Hmm.
talking about perimenopause or menopause, that can be through understanding, openness, and flexible support.
Hmm.
See, in the working culture, most important is that I feel if there are some flexible policies that can be put into place, they would actually help. Options should be made available, like you've got flexible working hours, women can take breaks, there
Yes.
are rest spaces available, which
Hmm.
I remember, I mean, when I was in school, we used to call that as a sick room, and we would make an excuse if we wanted to have a rest during the
Hmm.
school days. So
Hmm.
similarly, may not be a sick room, but some rest space should be made available in your workplaces. The workload adjustments should be done in
Absolutely.
case
I was
you
about to
feel
say
that
that. I
a
was about
woman
to say
is
that.
like, not feeling up to the mark, she's feeling fatigued today. So there should be some colleagues to whom you can shed off your load for the day, and you can say, okay, if you can probably take on some share of my work for today. All this should be
Hmm.
made possible. This will not only basically, create trust and help women manage these symptoms without the feeling of guilt that they would have otherwise.
In my opinion, the knowledge should be readily available. It should not only be in terms of medical, clinical, pathological terms. It should
Correct.
be from the human lens. There should be spaces where, as colleagues, you could go out, stretch yourself, probably. You should be able to speak to someone who is knowledgeable about this. So, probably the HR department should have these sort of people. And that's I would say thinking loud, but yeah, somebody who's trained at menopause, perimenopause in workspace. Maybe in the future we would have something to the tune of menopausal officer, perimenopause assistant. I'm thinking loud, but yes, the possibilities are endless. So, having said that, Amrinderji, I would want you to give me one takeaway from today's talk that women can start to implement in their lives to kind of ease off this stage and probably address burnout more pragmatically.
See, one tip that I would like to give to all women is
Hmm.
self care is most important. Put on your oxygen
Hmm.
mask first before you take care of
Hmm.
everybody else in your life.
Hmm.
And to the working women, I'd like to say be an advocate for menopause at work. It has to start with you.
Right, right, right. And with that token of appreciation that you've given to our community, that advice that you've given to our community, to everybody who's listening, I would thank you for such a beautiful conversation that we've had today. I would thank you for all the information, knowledge that you bring to the table. And I would thank you in advance for all the further discussions and panel discussions and conversations that we're going to have in the future. Amrinder ji.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you, Harman, for having me on your show. And I hope we can actually work collectively for this cause together.
I'm so sure about this, and we have uh, bigger discussions to attend,
Correct.
bigger conversations to make, and much bigger causes to take up through this collective. So thank you so much for being a part of this collective,
Thank
Amrinder ji.
you.
Thank you.